And we're ready to go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Small Business Masterminds foundation webinar about how to become a time management ninja, and two easy questions, two simple questions, actually. Big difference between easy and simple. So first of all, I'm going to give you, this is what you can expect tonight, as usual. First of all, I'm going to give you a whole heap of stuff, as much as I can cram into your brains in the time that we have. So hang on for the ride, okay? So I love this topic, and as they say, our ideas are like our children. Our own are always the most special, so I get excited about this stuff. So fire me. In a moment, I'll tell you what you can expect during the session, what we'll cover, and at the end, I'll tell you how you can take a really easy next step with a special offer for attendees of the mastermind sessions, if you want to. So I trust that sounds okay. So it's great to have you all here tonight with a nice roll up. It's great. We'll get straight into it. So that's our topic. And first is general comments. It's been proven time and time again that passively sitting and listening to someone talking means that you're going to forget 90% of what you've heard in less than a week. So if you want to get as much return on your investment of time in being part of this webinar, you need to participate. And the best way to ensure that you're focused and participating is by working through the set of worksheets as we go along. And so if you haven't done so yet, you'll see there up on the top left of your screen in the chat window a link to the shortcut link to the resources page on which the webinar worksheets are. And if you're listening to the recording, I'll remind you it's tiny, so tiny.cc/time-l-page, tiny.cc/time-l-page. It's tiny.cc/time, just all the time, L page. And that's the whole resources page. Well, actually, if you're watching the recording, you would have accessed it from there anyway. So the webinar worksheets are on it. There's a download there as well. So if you if you get lost, please put up your hand. You'll see there's a button up the top called My Mood. If you hover the mouse over the My Mood button or click on it, you get a number of options, and you can either raise your hand or say yes or no, or please speed up or slow down, or tell me I'm fine. Can I just check that everybody can hear me all right? Yep, I'm getting lots of thumbs up. That's great. Thank you. You can also type in the bottom left hand of a window that says type your message here, and that will come up for me. Everybody's on mute, besides me, of course. If we need to, I can take individually off mute if we want to talk about something in particular. Page 2 of your worksheet also has an explanation of the webinar screen here for you if you have any confusions about that. As I mentioned before, we're actually already recording this session at the moment, as I normally am, so that people who haven't been able to make it are able to access the webinar recording. So if you're going to get distracted by Facebook or text messages or Instagram or Twitter or whatever the latest is, or your email for that matter, boring old email, turn it all off, turn it onto a different screen. You cannot get maximum value from this webinar and do Facebooking or texting or emailing at the same time. You simply cannot get the value out of it. It's multitasking is a myth, believe me, even for the women. This is what we're doing today. we're going to check in what you what your state of thinking and feeling about this topic is for you. We're going to talk about how time management is big business. I'll give you the story of Darren and the lessons from Darren. We'll talk about the two big questions. Then we'll talk about my own story, an example, part of my own story, and the lessons from that. Then we're going to talk about some more procrastination, and then there'll be a special offer, the one that I mentioned before. The special offer alone is worth hanging around for, and we're going to get into action, because without action, nothing ain't ever going to happen. So you'll be leaving with some really powerful, useful, simple, and practical actions that you can take in your business and your life straight away. Any questions, of course, please ask. No questions right now. So for those of you who don't know me, that's me, honest. I really am that handsome. And I do even smile sometimes. I'm Roland Hennekrut. I'm a business coach and I'm a mentor, and I help business owners feel great about themselves and about their business, because I make business fun again. Business itself fun again, and I help you build a business that sustains you for years to come. And I'm the author of the 10 Truths series, the 10 Truths books. So today's small business webinar is actually about a topic that's woven throughout both my books, and as well as the third one that's coming out soon. How do we make best and most efficient use of our time? And these are my outcomes for today. This is what I want you to take away. I want you to all walk away enthusiastic and with at least one action that you're committed to taking in your business around using your time better in your business, and feel better about your levels of efficiency while you're at it. And I want you to all leave with greater appreciation about how important it is to not only be good at your profession and your skill, the stuff that got you to start your business, but also to be great at actually running a business, to become a business owner rather than a business doer. A business owner rather than a business doer, that's what we need to be. Hang on, just a note. Right, sorry. Because a lot of business, a lot of business owners like us, we're great tradespeople, great professionals, so great subject matter experts, but we know a lot about our subject, our profession, our trade. But to be a great small business owner and to build a fun business that sustains you for years to come, you have to have a solid understanding of all the key aspects of developing your business, not just your profession or trade. And the key aspects of your business, I believe, are these: the vision and purpose of your business, planning, strategic thinking and goal setting, numbers and taking control of your business, financial management and profit, marketing, customers, sales, systemization and innovation, your staff, leadership, and the rhythm of business, which is not one of the cogs that's up there, but all those cogs together form the rhythm of business. And well, no one ever said it was easy. What's worse, it's actually too much to focus on, isn't it? It's overwhelming and it's daunting, and we always feel like we're behind. So I'm committed to helping small business owners around the world become less overwhelmed and less daunted, and about the demands of developing their business and to have more fun. And so I will be making you a special offer later on to take another step. As I said, it's alone is worth being here for. So before we go on, I'd like you to go to your worksheet, and on the second page of your worksheet, you'll see a question with some space underneath it. And the question is this: right now, at this particular moment, this coming month, what is the biggest challenge you face in your business right now? What is your most pressing issue? What's the one thing that keeps you awake most? And so take a moment to write the answer down on your worksheet. I'm going to give you a minute's silence to write while I have a sip of my tea. just below the box you just filled in about your most pressing issue, there's another box and another question. And this is about your outcome. What is your outcome for participating in this webinar today, for being tuned into this webinar? What do you want to get from being here today? Please fill that in as well. And now that you've decided what it is that you want to get from being here today, I challenge you to ask yourself, what do I have to do to get that? What do I have to do to make sure, to give myself the best opportunity to get what I want to get from being here today? So let's get started. To begin, we're going to check in with a poll. I'm going to check in with a poll with you guys, how you feel about this topic. And I get the poll now. Pull it up. Business finance. Here we go. There we go. There you go. There's 5 options to the question. And it's repeated on your worksheet. I think it might be page 3. The question that I want you to respond to is this. Thinking about my time management and how efficient I am, I feel A, ashamed because I waste enormous amounts of time. I'm the world's worst procrastinator. I am a professor of procrastination, a lazy, undisciplined and inefficient slob. That's A. B, I'm annoyed and frustrated because I know I'm holding my business back because I procrastinate and I get distracted a lot. C, I'm confused because some days I'm like a machine and everything just flows, and other days I get nothing done. D, all of the above. It depends on when you ask me. And E, I'm inspired and excited. My days fly by. I always seem to be in the zone. I have time to do everything I want. I'm writing a book about becoming a time management ninja. So make your choice. A, B, C, D, or E. Ashamed, annoyed, confused, all of the above, or inspired and excited. There we go. We've got a number. Nearly everybody's voted. A couple more. Difficult choice. I know, it's very hard. Just pretend you're playing pin the tail on the donkey. Okay. All right, there we go. That's the poll done. And so the numbers have come back now. Most people score B, C, and D. Luckily, not a lot of A's. That's great. That would be sad. And there's no one who scored an E, and I suppose that makes sense. Otherwise, if you're writing a book about your own time management, then you probably wouldn't want to spend your valuable time here. So anyway, so those people, we're glad those people, the ones that would have picked E, we're glad they're not on this call because we hate those people, right? Yeah, well, I do. But look, that's pretty well what I expected. As I said before, most of us small business owners feel annoyed and confused, or all of them at once. Because most small business owners, like all of you here, and I have the same experience, everybody here on this webinar, we're great technicians, we're great carpenters, we're great architects, great web developers, great real estate agents, great mortgage brokers, but none of us ever went to time management school, did we? And none of us ever learned how to become efficient, right? And so we feel like that. You feel frustrated and annoyed because you don't get the things done you want to get done, and you give yourself a hard time. You get to the end of the day and the mountain of stuff on your to-do list is just as big as it was at the beginning of the day. And it's not that you don't know what you should be doing to move your business forward. It's just that you don't have the time to do them because you're always running around managing crises and extinguishing brush fires. And even if you do find some time to do the business development stuff, you waste half the day procrastinating and getting distracted by stuff that simply doesn't matter. It really doesn't, right? There's so much stuff that we end up doing that actually doesn't really matter. And so in the meantime, there's always another crisis to manage somewhere. You run around from employee crisis to client crisis to supplier crisis to compliance crisis to cash crisis, and all the way back to the beginning again. You're always behind, and what that leads to is this. One, you know that you should spend more time doing the business development instead of being in the business. After all, everyone always tells you so. And hence you feel inadequate, not good enough as a business owner. And what is worse in a way, that everyone, all those everyones that tell you that you should be spending more time in the business, everyone is actually right. You simply cannot build a fun, healthy, sustainable business by being in the business, by managing crises and swinging the hammer, as it were, all the time. You just can't. Developing a business that sustains you for years to come takes dedicated focus on being an effective business owner as opposed to a business doer. And so the business stagnates and you feel frustrated and overwhelmed, and that's not a great set of outcomes, right? So how can we take the first steps to start to get less overwhelmed, less daunted, less frustrated, get the business moving in the right direction, start to have fun in business again like we used to, and build a business that sustains us for years to come? That's what we want to achieve. That's all. That's the question we want to answer. So here we go. I'm going to tell you a few stories. Time management is a big topic. Human beings love giving themselves a hard time over their lack of efficiency and discipline. We just love beating ourselves up over our lack of time management. And in my experience, small business owners are hardest of all on themselves. Nearly every client I've ever started working with will, at some stage, early on in our engagement, confess to me that they are truly the world's worst procrastinator, the world's laziest slob, and that they specifically want me to get really, really tough with them because they deserve to feel the impact of my size 13 boots on their backsides. And luckily, I do have actual size 13 boots on my size 13 feet. But I think that time management is only exceeded by dieting as a favorite motivation for us to practice our self-castigation and self-flagellation skills. And time management, like business, like dieting, is big business, just like dieting. In researching this topic, I went to Amazon and I typed in time management books, and I found more than 20,000 titles. More than 20,000 titles such as Time Warrior, Eat That Frog, Getting Things Done, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and there's an 8th habit now as well. The 4-hour work week, you name it, it goes on and on. There's more than 20,000. There's some of the big names, but what is especially amazing about this is that all 20,000 books, more than 20,000, make a solemn promise. They make a solemn promise that within the covers of this particular book is a unique and proven method to take you from being a slob to being a time management ninja and a master of efficiency. Pretty amazing, right? 20,000 unique and proven methods. But so which one of these unique and proven methods works best? And if you pick up the wrong one, does that mean that you're going to be wasting more of your time? I'll tell you a little story about me. I myself got in on the act some time ago as well. I thought, well, big business, there's a good business here. Let me do it myself. Get in and make some money on about time management as well. So I designed my own unique and proven time management method, and it was all based on the concept of juggling balls and making sure that those balls wouldn't hit the floor. It involved a whiteboard and different colored stickies that could be moved around the board. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. There really was no other way to describe it. I can't tell a lie either. My method was going to change the face of modern business and the world. But, you know, when all is said and done, I actually have to admit that really it was just another approach to managing your to-do lists. And that's the deal. You see, all 20,000 titles on Amazon, as well as my own brilliant methods, all of those proven unique methods fall into two distinct camps. One, there are the many variations of working with to-do lists, like lots of variations on that. And, you know, some of those involve a perpetual list, others involve a new list every day or every week. Some list methods tell you to divide your task in 3 or 4 or 6 different categories. Others suggest you to just dump every action, no matter how small or large, in the same list, so that you end up with an endless list. And some ask you to filter out the most important tasks and do them first only. And others suggest that you do the ones you like least first, and then followed by the second least liked, etc., etc. The second approach that all the methods fall into is around varying ways to manage your diary in your day. Some tell you to keep lots of blank space in your diary. Some direct you to plan your day in 10-minute blocks. Others ask you to just stick the big rocks in your diary and wing the rest of it. They're the big two different approaches. I actually worked very briefly, I have to say, very briefly, for a specialist time management consultancy some years back. And we consulted to corporate clients in the city. And the consultancy revolved around some specific and unique, proven IP that we taught to the clients. And the IP largely consisted of dividing your tasks up between those that took more or less than 10 minutes to complete. And those that took more than 10 minutes would be blocked out into your diary in Outlook or Gmail or whatever. And those that took less than 10 minutes to complete would go in your task list. It also involved changing a setting in Outlook that allowed the minimum time interval that you could block out in the calendar down to 10 minutes. That's very clever. Now, I want you to be aware that I'm taking an enormous personal risk here, because I'm sharing this IP with you, and I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement when I started working with them. Clearly, they felt the sheer brilliance of the methodology had to be protected. So by sharing it with you just now, I'm in breach, and I may well be run out of this town, tarred and feathered. So please don't tell anyone, because the consultancy charged absolute fortunes for their unique, proven, and brilliant techniques. And what's more, the corporate clients paid for it. It simply never ceases to amaze me what the corporate world will pay for. So did it work? Did that method work that we taught? What about those 20,000 titles on Amazon? Do they work? What about my own inspired methodology based on juggling? Does it work? Well, of course they work. They all do. Otherwise they wouldn't have published the books. The methods all work for the person who wrote the book. But that ain't you, is it? Here's another story from a few years ago. A very similar thing happened to me a couple of weeks ago as well, but I'll just tell this story because it's a nice one. It actually comes up for me all the time, this story in various forms with my clients. So a few years ago, and a keen observer might notice that all my stories take place a few years ago. All my stories do take a few years ago. And I do have many stories, and you might think that it was a busy time a few years ago. I'm on a boring life I lead now, but believe me, they are real stories. I do not make the stories up. I just change the details to protect the innocent, obviously. Okay? So a few years ago, I worked with a client. His name was Darren, who used to beat himself up something shocking over his laziness, his procrastination, and his addictions to distractions, such as those addictions. One Monday morning, Darren came into one of our sessions in a particularly foul mood, and to my inquiry about his weekend, he snapped, "Oh, I didn't get that bloody tax return done again all weekend. I am just so lazy." And when I asked him what happened, he responded with this: "Look, I spent all weekend cleaning up the garage, mowing the lawn, watching the rugby, and taking my girlfriend out to lunch instead. And to be honest, I've been procrastinating for weeks over this tax return, and even after making the decision to get it done this weekend, I still never even made the start of it." Wow. I said, that sounds bad. That sounds very bad. Let's see what you're on about. But so, look, tell me, did you at least enjoy yourself doing those other things? Well, of course, he replied. I mean, it felt really good to get those things done. And what's more, the garage really needed cleaning. You couldn't get into the garage anymore, actually. And the lawn was like this high, and he just gestured to hip height. And the wallabies won finally. Would you believe it? And my girlfriend really appreciated the attention. However, that's not the point. I still didn't do my tax return, even after making a commitment to do so. I said, I see. I understand that you're disappointed. And tell me, but have you always done your tax return? And Darren pondered for a little while, and he responded, "Yeah, well, ever since I was 18, and my those two are really sickeningly sweet, those two, aren't they?" We'll have to move that slide soon. Yes, ever since I was 18, and my father taught me how to do it, and, always felt really good completing it by myself and getting some sort of refund. Okay, so I said, "So have you ever been late putting your tax return in, and are you late now?" "Oh, no," said Darren. "That would defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? I'd get a penalty and that'd reduce the fun of getting a refund. No, I've never been late. And I still have a couple of weeks to go now, but that's beside the point. I just wanted to get it in a few weeks early in case something came up." So I said, "Well, yeah, okay, all right, in case something came up. Let's see, maybe something did come up. Maybe the lawn came up. Maybe the garage came up. Maybe the game came up. Maybe your girlfriend was more important this weekend." "Look, is there actually any reason to assume," I asked him, "is there actually any reason to assume that you're not going to get your tax return completed in the next 2 weeks on time?" In case you're interested, Darren completed his tax return the next weekend, and he still had a week to spare in case something came up. And I have no doubt that now, a few years later, Darren will still be completing his tax return and getting it in on time. Mind you, I saw him the other day by coincidence, and he's moved to Hong Kong, so it might all be different there. Who knows? But you get the point, right? I think there's a couple of lessons to be learned from Darren's story, not least that doing your own tax return may be false economy measured against the joy of cleaning out a garage. But what are your takeaways from that story? On your worksheet is space to write down your top takeaways or interesting observations from others. Feel free to write down your own thoughts on your sheet, and I'd love some of you to share yours while we wait for some questions or feedback. I'll go and summarize the point of the story from my perspective. But yeah, there's a chat window there. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to share your insights, we'd love to hear them, and we'll share them around. But see, I think I think we all love to give ourselves a hard time all the time. It's clearly something that dates back to ancient Stone Age history, or something like that. Something dating back to days that men ran away from saber-toothed tigers, and women were dragged into the cave by their hair or something like that. I don't know. A bit like Buster Keaton. Is that Buster Keaton? I think it is Buster Keaton. I don't know. But what I do know is that all of us, and business owners more than most, beat up on ourselves something shocking, something fierce. Business owners generally are just so ridiculously tough on themselves. It just never ceases to amaze me, truly. Darren had told himself that as a responsible person, he was to have the tax return completed some weeks early, and every week it wasn't completed, he used as an excuse to flagellate himself. So, yep, we've got a couple of comments from Bob in Newcastle. Bob wonders if Darren got lucky that weekend. The story doesn't tell us that, Bob. Sorry. Kerry in Bathurst. Isn't being tough on yourself one of the reasons that things get done? Don't we have to be tough on ourselves to make sure that things get completed on time? Great question, Kerry. Hang on, let's sip of tea from my throat. Yeah, look, that's a great question. Look, I would say that depends on how you look at it. See, there's no doubt that if you've been stoned since the Beatles came back from India, and I'm showing my age a little there, but you know, in the, was it late 60s, early 70s? If you've been stoned ever since, that you've probably not managed to get much of a business or anything else off the ground. Might be growing stuff in Nimbin. So yeah, absolutely, a certain amount of self-discipline is a useful attribute for business owners. But see, if you'd been stoned since your adolescence, you probably wouldn't have started the business at all. The fact that you have started the business, or are in the process of doing so, means that you have a certain amount of initiative and discipline and determination. I reckon that's stating the bleeding obvious. Certainly all the ones that I've met. So Darren had done his tax return on time, appropriately, for 19 years. He was entitled to have a little more trust in himself by now. He was entitled to trust himself to get it done on time, and he was entitled to trust his judgment when he decided to put his girlfriend first that week. Because he would undoubtedly get it done and on time, and by learning to trust himself, he could become so much happier and calmer, and he would have enjoyed his weekend so much more. Because that's the crazy thing. He didn't get his tax return done because there was something else that he wanted to do, but he didn't enjoy it anywhere near as he could have, because the little voice on his shoulder just kept giving him a hard time. But part of the weekend was ruined for him by feeling guilty. He could have had lunch with his girlfriend and been totally happy about that, because if he's not going to do it, he's not going to do it. Why beat up on yourself? Either beat up on yourself and go, oh, great, I better go and do it, and I don't have lunch, well, at least then the tax return gets done, or go and have your lunch and enjoy the lunch. But having the lunch and feeling bad about it is just a complete waste of your life. And look, you might say, yeah, but it's better to be distrustful and skeptical, because that's the only way to stay sharp, the only way to be efficient and effective. And that's the interesting thing, because that's where you'd be wrong. Being distrustful and skeptical and hard on yourself isn't the only way to be efficient and effective. It's quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. When you are in a frame of mind like Darren was when he came to see me, you will be least likely to do great work, least likely to be efficient, and most of all, least likely to be creative and resourceful. And these are all characteristics that you need to build your business. So doing what you can to allow yourself to feel happy and calm is going to lead to much greater outcomes all round. Does that make sense, Gary? Yes. Cool. All right. That's a long answer, wasn't it? Yeah. Let's move on. There's some other comments. We'll get back to those a little bit later, I think. Because let's get to the interesting bit. I'm going to tell you something that rocks your world. Something shocking. Hold on. Sitting down. this is how you're going to feel. Because you see, this is the big one. People only ever do anything in life for one of two reasons. Reason one, they do it because they want to do this thing. They actually want to do it. Or because they do not want, this is the second reason, because they do not want the consequences of not doing this thing. That's it. Darren wasn't a lazy, procrastinating, good-for-nothing. He wanted to do the garage. He wanted to deal with the grass. He wanted to watch the Wallabies hopefully win a game. And he wanted to spend time with his girlfriend. He wanted to do those things. And he did not particularly want to do his tax return that weekend. And what's more, the consequences of not doing his tax return that weekend were actually minimal because he still had 2 weeks up his sleeve. The interesting thing is that Darren actually made entirely the right decision at that time to not do his tax return, even though the little voice on his shoulder told him that he should. Imagine if Darren had been as disciplined as he'd wanted to be, and he'd listened to the voice on his shoulder, and he'd done the tax return instead of the lawn and the garage. He would potentially have a much better reason to be down on himself. He would probably have really regretted not watching the game on Sunday because the Wallabies might not win another game for years. And his girlfriend, well, I know what was better for his relationship. And as Bob said, well, they got lucky. So time management always has to start with those two questions. And this is the key. How much do I want to do this thing? Do I actually want to do this thing? And how much do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? It's critical. It really is critical. It's incredibly simple. It's incredibly simple. But simple's not easy. As long as you do not have 100% clarity over those two questions, you will always confuse the hell out of yourself and you will be exasperated with yourself, often for being such a procrastinator and a lazy slob, and you will always be looking around for another unique and proven time management method to turn you into an efficiency ninja. By all means, go and read some books on how to manage your time better and become efficient. There are some really great books out there. I mean, personally, I'm a great fan of Stephen Covey's approach of assessing urgency versus importance. It's a powerful way of thinking. Stephen Covey's the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he talks about the 4 quadrants in time management and urgent versus important. There's a tool that's taken from Stephen Covey on your on the resources page, the tiny.cc/timelpage page. There's a worksheet that you can download about that. But anyway, as I said, I'm a great fan of Stephen Covey's approach to time management and thinking about time management. But without that clarity, 100% clarity about those two questions, how much do I want to do this thing and how much do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? Without that clarity, no method is going to make 1 iota worth of difference. Of course, there's more to being efficient and effective than just answering those two questions. That's not the end of the matter. Just by answering those two questions, you aren't suddenly going to be procrastination free forever, obviously, but it absolutely starts there. So what else is there? I'm so glad you asked. Other reasons. There are actually another couple of really important considerations that you should become aware of in order to avoid procrastination and feeling down on yourself. And there's another story, and this story is about myself, and it took place a few years ago, of course. So I've always done a lot of writing. I'm a fairly good writer. I was actually trained as a journalist in the distant past before I became a builder. So I've had a bit of practice and schooling, and I actually enjoy the process of writing. But for years, I wouldn't get much writing done at all because of endless procrastination. And the typewriter, it gets stuck there. I'm old enough to actually know what that is, but a lot of you don't. Anyway, so when I decided to write an article or whatever, I could literally spend days procrastinating and wasting time and getting distracted by everything under the sun. I used to beat up on myself like you wouldn't believe. But most of the time, if I really persisted, in the end, something would be written, and more often than not, I'd feel quite happy with the outcome. But because it took me so much time to actually sit down and write, because I procrastinate so much before pen would actually go to paper or keyboard, I'd rather end up writing stuff. I'd rarely end up writing stuff because I just didn't have the time. Until one day, I realized that the reason I procrastinated and wasted so much time when I decided to write something was that I didn't know what I was going to write. And because I didn't know what I was going to write, I couldn't sit down and I'd find different things to do instead of writing. When I realized this, I decided to change my approach. I decided to trust myself that something would come out as long as I'd start writing. So now, and this is something I constantly have to remind myself of as well, because it's not easy, but it absolutely works. So now, when I want to write, I simply sit down behind the keyboard and I start to write. Literally whatever pops into my head. It's like stream of consciousness stuff. I mean, obviously I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to write, but I just start writing. I start writing about the weather if I have to, or what I did on the weekend, or the last book I read. I'll start writing nonsense if I have to. It doesn't matter. Once I start writing, I know that it'll come, and it always does. And all the nonsense I wrote to get started, I just try it out again. Doesn't matter. And so now I don't have to procrastinate anywhere near as much anymore, and I get a lot of writing done, and I'm getting better at writing, and I enjoy it, and it's good for my business, and it's changed my life and my business. So this is the point of the story. Once we have absolute clarity over what we want to do and what consequences we want to avoid, those two questions, we can often be waylaid by a few other hurdles. A few other hurdles that lead to major attacks of the procrastination disease. We don't know how to actually do the thing we want to do. We just don't know how to do it, actually. We know we've got to do this thing, and we think we know, but we haven't actually sat down and thought, do we actually know how to do it, or how do we begin? Another reason is the task that we've set ourselves is too big. The enormity of the task is overwhelming, and we just don't know where to start. Or another reason is we're actually unsure what the task actually involves. Not this cartoon when I found it. Just like that. The task I must undertake is towering over me like a great big monolith. It's too big to contemplate, so I think I'll go and have a little look at the internet. So we're just going to spend some time on the internet. And look, there's probably more of those kinds of hurdles that lead to procrastination, being tempted by distraction, because I see this all the time in my own case and with my clients. Look, a client might decide in one of my sessions, right, I'm going to write a marketing plan. That's what I need to do for my business. So next week, I'm going to start writing one. And then at our next session, nothing's happened about the marketing plan. The client either makes all kinds of excuses or he beats up on himself for being such a procrastinator. And this might go on for a couple of weeks until we really dig in and uncover what is actually going on. 9 times out of 10, and I'm really not exaggerating about this, 9 times out of 10, what we find is that the client actually isn't clear on how to go about writing a marketing plan, what the steps are, where to start. And then when we spend some time getting clear about the steps in the process of writing a marketing plan, the whole procrastination issue goes away and people become quite efficient. As I said, there's many variations on this mechanism that 9 times out of 10, when you get attacked by the procrastination disease and you've answered those first 2 questions, it's a sign that there is something wrong with your clarity or with your understanding of the task or your confidence that you know how and where to start. And you look like that. Working with business owners for many years now, I actually think that the concept of laziness doesn't exist for business owners. Let's keep in mind that Homer is not a business owner. The concept of laziness simply doesn't exist for business owners. I don't think business owners are ever lazy. If you were a lazy person, you would not have started a business to begin with. I've never yet met a lazy person who decided to start a business. I've met some lazy people who inherited businesses, but I've never met one who started a business. So I think that the phenomenon of procrastination and laziness is always 100% of the time a sign of something else. And once you've cleared away the various hurdles, as I talked about, things start falling into place again and life starts to flow again. So many problems that business owners face in the day-to-day running of their business are caused by not giving themselves enough space. Allowing yourself more time and space to ask yourself the 2 big questions about clarity and to investigate what's going on when you find yourself procrastinating truly is one of the big steps towards having more fun in business and building a business that sustains you for years to come. And it's the secret to feeling great about yourself and about your business. I promise you. I absolutely promise you. So let's have a look at the top takeaways so far. I don't know why I picked that picture because I don't even like olives on that picture. There's some space on your worksheet to write down your top insights and learnings and questions, and also those of others. So ask yourself, what are the top three insights on your worksheet? Answer the question, what are the top 3 insights that you've had since being on the webinar? What do you see now that you didn't before? Or maybe what are your top 3 questions? That's just as valid. What are your top 3 questions? In other words, just take a moment to focus on the most important stuff that's going around in your head. What's whizzing around in your head at the moment? And I'll give you a minute of silence while I fill up my cup of tea. I've got a question there that I'll get to in a second. Right, back again. Let's get to my question. Clarity, understanding that business owners are not lazy. That was my takeaway. Cool. Yes. Well, it's true. I honestly, truly do not believe I've ever met a business owner who started his or her own business who is a lazy person. I mean, it's just not what lazy people do. Yeah. So, great. These are my big insights. They're also on your worksheet as well. All time management methods work for the person who designed it. All of them, all 20,000 of them, they all work for the person who designed the method and wrote the book, but that doesn't mean they're going to work for you. All time management methods can be divided in 2 types. Those that teach you how to manage your to-do lists and those that teach you how to use your calendar. Avoiding procrastination and becoming an efficiency ninja starts with asking yourself, why do I want to do this thing, or why do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? And unless you have clarity over those two questions, why do I want to do this thing, or why do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? Unless you have clarity over those two questions, you cannot be efficient. Beating up on yourself does not make it easier for you to do great work. It really doesn't. Procrastination and getting distracted is usually a sign of some other hurdle. If you've started a business, you're not by nature a lazy person. And to be efficient and effective as a business owner, you have to allow yourself space and time to reflect on your tasks and your priorities. So we've had a few more questions come in comments. May not be able to get to all of them, sorry, but feel free to email me after. Let's get to a couple of those questions. So Lisa from Brisbane. I've heard a lot of great things about the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. Wants to know if I recommend it. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, Getting Things Done is a really solid method, and it works well. It's a good book. If your brain is the type of brain that likes working with big lists, you know, my brain isn't, so it doesn't work for me so much. No. As I said, I love Stephen Covey's approach in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, of the 4 quadrants, and as I mentioned on the page, the tiny.cc/time roll page. Is a worksheet that you can download about that. Have a look at it. But look, sure, Lisa, if GTD, as it's referred to, Getting Things Done, or GSD, I'll let you work out what S stands for. As it's referred to often. If it works for you, fantastic. Several of my clients in the past have worked with it, and there are actually some iPhone and Android apps available for the GTD method. It's quite good. But just think about the message that I've been hammering in this webinar. Don't think that GTD, Getting Things Done, or any method is going to fix your problem unless you give yourself the space and time and you've asked yourself those questions. So, Ken, from Sydney, Ken, do I still use the method I developed myself with juggling? Yeah, great, Ken, and it was a few years ago, like 6-7 years ago, and because it demonstrates the other thing about time management. Because no, I don't use that approach anymore because it outlived its usefulness. It was useful at the time; it outlived its usefulness. Not that I don't procrastinate or get distracted. Facebook is a terrible affliction, and the constant barrage of email can screw my days up just as badly as it can for other people. And sometimes I'm just not in a mood to really ask myself the questions, and I just want to fiddle all day as well. You know, surprising as it may sound, I am human. But yeah, now a lot of my time is taken up with developing new ideas to market myself, and about writing, and new ideas about how to work with people, and how to and new management techniques or business development techniques. So a lot of my time is taken up with thinking and developing, and that needs a lot of time. That needs a lot of thinking time. So sometimes it can look to me, as much as everything else, as if I'm wasting time, but really I'm actually just mulling things over, letting things bubble away and marinate in my brain. But sometimes I really need to get certain things done, and I can't allow myself to be distracted by email and Facebook or whatever else there is. And what I do then here's another unique and proven time management technique. Hold on, this is brilliant. This is going to change the face of modern business. I should write a book, but this is what I do. I have a laptop that I use when I travel or when I'm going to presentations and stuff like that. So I have a laptop, but it's a fairly old one, and it's not very fast, and it doesn't do all that much stuff, but it's perfectly good for writing on. It's really good for writing on. So what I do is I have another table in my office, and I set the laptop up on this other table, when I really need to get some really solid writing done, for example, articles on my books, webinars. And then I set the laptop up on this different table, and then I just open only Microsoft Word, nothing else. I just don't allow myself to open internet browsers with Facebook and email and all that sort of stuff. And if I really have to check my email during the day, well, I can do that while I'm writing for hours or whatever. I can just check my email on the phone, and then that's less distracting. I can put it away more easily. And so that way I can really get solidly focused on doing this writing for blocks of several hours at a time. So there you go. Another free time management method, unique, proven, 20,001 or 2 now. But all of that still only happens when I have absolute clarity over those 2 questions. Do I really want to do this thing? How much do I want to do this thing, and how much do I not want to avoid? How much do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? If I don't have that clarity, I won't set up the laptop either. So, and one other thing. It's one other thing that must be time management method 20,003. I will not ever look at Twitter again. I will have it written on my gravestone. He never looked at Twitter again. Twitter just simply drove me slightly insane, truly. And one day I just uninstalled it from my computers, and I just don't go there anymore. I truly just pull. One day I actually pulled the plug from the wall because it was just too doing my head in. I got so bad that I was getting up in the middle of the night, going to the toilet, and I walked past the computer. I thought I'd better check what's on Twitter. So I won't ever look there again. That's another method how I avoid the temptation. It's just a temptation. It's Twitter I can't resist. Clearly, obviously, I have an addictive personality. So I thought of starting a 12-step program for Twitter addicts, Twitter Anonymous or something. Anyway, I hope that answered your questions. Moving on. So I mentioned before that I want to make a special offer to you that I've designed to make it as easy as possible for you to take a step forward out of feeling daunted and overwhelmed about all those key business development priorities that are screaming for your attention every day. As I said, I am absolutely committed to help as many small businesses in the world as possible feel great about themselves and about their business by building businesses that are fun and that sustain them for years to come. So remember, I asked you at the beginning to focus on and write down what your most pressing issue right now is, the biggest challenge in your business. What is your biggest challenge, the most pressing issue in your business right now? And I hope it's slightly more eventful than this poor woman's most pressing issue. So is that issue that I asked you to write down before, is that still your most pressing issue? Is that still your biggest challenge? Check in with yourself on that. Because here's the deal. I want to help you with that most pressing issue. I want to help you find some simple, effective steps forward in relation to that big challenge, your most pressing issue, the thing that keeps you awake at night or wakes you up with a start in the middle of the night. And so I've created a really special, easy peasy, lemon squeezy offer for people who are on these webinars. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get a really powerful written business health check report about your business. You're going to get a hard copy of my first book, The 10 Truths for Raising a Healthy, Bouncy Business. If you've already got that, then I promise you will get a copy of my third one, which will be out in a few months. It's at the editors at the moment. So I'll owe you one if you've already got one. Yep. So if you're not in Sydney, you'll get it mailed to you. You get to sit down for an hour with me face to face. This is the big thing. You get to sit down for an hour with me, an hour and a quarter actually, face to face or via Skype or video link, one-on-one, and gain clarity and focus about where you are now and where you want to get to in your business, and you'll walk away with clarity and insight and one or more simple action steps that will start to move you forward past that big pressing issue and towards having more fun in your business again. All you have to do to get started is to make a $100 donation to the Wayside Chapel. There's one or two people on this call, on this webinar, who know the Wayside Chapel nearly as well as I do, I think. The Wayside Chapel is a homeless centre for homeless, support for homeless people, and people who've fallen by the wayside, I suppose, youth and others, in the heart of Sydney, King's Cross. It's my favourite charity. So it truly will be the most fun and most effective charity donation you've ever made in your life. And the offer is also on your worksheet, I think, on the last page or the second last page. And the web address for the Wayside Chapel to make the donation is this. I'll just type it in now, http thewaysidechapel.com, and then you just click on the donations button and make a donation, and then let me know that you've done it, and then we'll take the next steps. Obviously, more than welcome to make more than a $100 donation. Apparently, Dick Smith donated $350,000, so feel free to match Dick Smith. Right, back to the grind. I'll just quickly repeat the insights before we get to action. Before actions, all time management methods work for the person who designed it, but that doesn't mean they're going to work for you. All time management methods can be divided in two types: those that teach you how to manage your to-do list, and those that teach you how to use your calendar. Avoiding procrastination and becoming an efficiency ninja starts with asking yourself, why do I want to do this thing? Or why do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? Unless you have clarity over those two questions, you cannot be efficient. Beating up on yourself does not make it easier for you to do great work. The opposite. Procrastination and getting distracted is usually a sign of some other hurdle. If you've started a business, you are not by nature a lazy person or a procrastinator. And to be efficient and effective as a business owner, you have to allow yourself space and time to reflect on your tasks and priorities. Action. Nothing's going to change unless you take action. So there's a special resources page. The special resources page has a number of resources. I'm stumbling over my words. That link at the top of your chat window, tiny.cc/time or page. There's a bunch of resources besides the webinar worksheet, and the recording of this webinar will be on there as well. And so this is what I want you to do. The first thing I want you to do is this. Set some time aside. Set some time aside over the next few days to be able to get into this. Be sure you do this. If you don't do this, if you do not set time aside to do something with what you've learned and the information I've given you today in the next few days, then coming on this webinar has been a waste of your time. And not great time management, obviously. The only thing that ultimately makes any difference at all, anywhere in life, is what actions you take. So here are a few simple actions that I encourage you to take in the next week or so. As I said, go to the resources page, download the articles or tools that interest you. One specifically that I've mentioned already is the 4 quadrants of urgent versus important and the questions that go with it. So if you don't like it, it's fine, but the questions are really useful to ponder on. Read the article, the Forbes article, Time Management for the Rest of Us. Now, on a blank piece of paper, draw a horizontal scale. A horizontal scale. Hang on for a second. Yeah. Sorry about it. On a blank piece of paper, or you can do it on, obviously on a worksheet. Draw a horizontal scale that just looks like this. And you can call it, we're going to call it your Master of Time Management scale. And so 10 on the scale, 10 on your Master of Time Management scale is this. It means that you are so efficient that they should write a book about you. one of the 20,000 titles should be written about you, and 0 is the opposite. What number would you give yourself on the scale? Now, mark it on the scale. Mark it on that scale for yourself. And put the number there. And a lot of people will say, oh, you know, between 3 and 4. Well, is it 3.1 or is it 3.7? Or is it 4? Doesn't matter. Now ask yourself, what do I need to do this coming week to move one small increment up my Master of Time Management scale? What specific action must I take to move one small increment, say, from 6 to 6.1, up my time management scale? Specific action, because the next task is get your diary out right now and book that specific action or actions into your diary. Actually, book space for it into your diary. That's an action. If you don't take time to do it, then it's not an action, it's a wish. Specific action in your diary next week, so that when you take that action, you will have moved that small increment up your Master of Time Management scale. Same time next week, ask yourself the same question. What score, where am I on my scale? What is one thing I can do next week to move one step higher up the scale? So that's it for this webinar. Please make sure you do those 4 actions. They're not going to take much time at all, but taking the time to do them will mean the difference between having made good use of your time and having wasted some time. And they are some of the first steps that you can, that real steps that you can take to building a fun business that sustains you for years to come and feeling great about yourself and your business. So do it. Don't forget the special offer either. That's another fantastic step. The link to the donation is on your worksheet. It's also so there in the screen, thewaysidechapel.com. Just go ahead and do it. It will be the best $100 you've ever donated to anything or anyone. That was the offer. You get the health check online and a report, 7-page report. You get the copy of my book, a one-on-one coaching session, and you walk away with clarity and next steps. It's the best offer you've made. You've had all year to develop your business. And I'd love you to take it up. You're going to get a mountain of value from it. And the Wayside's going to love you too. That's me. Any more questions? Anybody got any other questions? If you take nothing else away from this webinar, if you forget everything else I've said, ask yourself this question today. How can I make this coming week? How can I make myself move one step up my Master of Time Management scale this coming week? How can I be a little bit more, not enormous, a little bit more efficient in my use of time this week? Try it out now. You'll be surprised about the impact it will have on your business and your life. I'm going to stop the recording now. So hope you take up the offer. Any questions, please obviously email me at roland@newperspectives.com.au. Turning the recording off. Lovely to have you all here tonight. I'm going to talk a little longer than an hour. And yep, thank you for all those comments. It's great. Lovely to have you guys. Speak soon, neighbor. All right. Oh, the recording's not turning off. Oh, there it is.